Hi, my name is Elizabeth Rich. I am a student at UNC Chapel Hill. But I spent the first 18 years of my life in a small town in the East African country of Kenya. Today, I just wanted to share with you a little of one of the cities I visited often growing up, so that you might be able to see a bit about Kenya without ever leaving your classroom chair. This is a picture of me and my little sister Hope. As you can see, she likes to wear my shoes. This picture is taken at our house in Kijabi, Kenya. My father is a dentist at the local hospital, and he and my mom moved to Kenya right after they got married. Anyways, now on to the city of Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya, and today I am hopefully going to take you on a virtual tour through the streets of the city so that you can imagine yourself walking, riding, and breathing the air in Nairobi. Here is a map of the world. I hope that most of you can locate the United States of America, but I want to introduce you to the big, huge continent in the center of the map, Africa. If anyone was having trouble finding it on the map, I thought that I should point it out for you. As you can see, it's the second largest continent in the world, only smaller than Asia. And because of its size, it's also very diverse. A lot of people think that everyone in Africa is the same, but hopefully today we will see just how in one city, in one country, there's so many diverse people living there. Alright, so here's Africa close up. You can see all the different countries that are included in Africa, all with different people, different cultures, and even different types of food. Now, can anyone find Kenya? Voila! Kenya is located in East Africa. As you can see, it's on the coast, and it borders the countries of Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. Now, here's a close-up map of the country of Kenya. We can see that it's also bordering Lake Victoria, which happens to be the largest lake in Africa. Now, let's see who can first find the city we're going to be talking about today, the capital city of Nairobi. And there it is. It is located in the Nairobi province, which is the smallest of all the provinces in Kenya. Provinces are like states in the US. Now, as far as Nairobi the city goes, it is the 13th most populated city in all of Africa, and it has close to 3 million people located within its borders. Nairobi sits on the eastern side of the Great Rift Valley. This is a picture I took of the Great Rift Valley on the road from my house to Nairobi. The city of Nairobi is 5,889 feet above sea level, which is pretty high. When I went home for Christmas this past year, after living in the States for a while, my lungs could definitely tell a difference in the altitude, just because the air is just a little bit thinner when it's that high above sea level. Nairobi is a lot like any other city when you see it from this high up point of view. Big buildings, busy streets, and lots of cars. But it did not start out that way. In 1899, Nairobi began as a small train stop in between Uganda and Mombasa. Mombasa is the port of Kenya on the coast. But the town quickly grew to become a bustling capital for the British East Africa in 1907. And when Kenya got her independence from the British in 1963, Nairobi became the capital. Nairobi continued to grow until what we see it is as it is today. Alrighty, much like the big buildings you might have seen in your home city, there are many big buildings in Nairobi. If you were just walking down the road, you would see multiple huge buildings just like the one in this picture. This one is actually a cell phone company, but the largest skyscraper in all of Nairobi is called Times Tower, and it's 450 feet high. Now, how many of you all have been to a mall? Well, if you were in Nairobi and wanted to go to a mall, this would be one of the ones that you could go to. This one is called Village Market, and this is the one I went to a lot when I was at home because it was the closest to my home. In this mall, you could do almost anything you could do at a mall in the US. You could go to the movies, you could go shopping, you could get something to eat. Speaking of food, you can get almost any type of food in Nairobi. You could get hamburgers and fries, you could get Chinese, or you could go for some traditional Kenyan food called nyama choma. These are two of my friends getting nyama choma with me one day. Nyama choma is grilled meat, usually goat, that's grilled over the fire. And if cooked right, it is so delicious. Now let's continue our walk along the street. This is a very typical view. Nairobi is a very urban city, so there are a lot of people wearing all types of clothes. Some people, like this group in the middle here, are wearing more specific clothes to a specific ethnic group, while there are also people wearing jeans and t-shirts or a uniform to work, like this man in the back. I just took this in passing, but my guess is that the woman on the right of this picture has just come from the market. You can see this because of the huge bag she's wearing right here. Alrighty, this is a very common view of a market. There are lots of different markets in Nairobi, and all of Kenya for that matter. But this would be most likely the one that the woman might have been coming from. As you can see, there are piles of fruits and vegetables that are locally grown and then brought from people's gardens, and the Swahili word for that is shambas, to bring to this market in order to be sold for every person that's walking by. In this particular market, as you can see, there are clothes hanging in the back. The clothes that don't get sold in department stores in the United States or Europe will often get shipped to places like Kenya, where they are sold for not much money in a market like this one. When I was in high school, about 90% of my clothes came from a market like this one, except the market that I usually went to was called Toy Market, which not toy like a little toy, but T-O-I. In the market, most of the time, it's not just a price on the vegetable or a price on the t-shirt. It's a bartering system. So they say, oh, I'll give you 300 shillings for this. And then you'll say, oh no, I will only pay 50 shillings. And then they'll come down, and you go up, and they'll come down, and you'll end up paying about 150 shillings for whatever you happen to be buying. Anyways, it's a different type of shopping than you'll be shopping in the United States, but sometimes it's a lot of fun. Alright, just for clarification purposes, not everything in the market is 150 shillings. I was just using that as an example of maybe one random thing. But to put shillings into perspective, 70 shillings is equal to about $1, depending on the exchange rate. This is another type of market, a tourism market. Because Kenya, and most of Africa for that matter, is known for the animals, the lions, giraffes, zebras, a lot of tourists come on vacation from Europe or the USA, and they come to Kenya to see the animals, but they want to buy something to take back to their family and friends in the US or Europe. As the tourist markets are very popular, this particular market is called the Maasai market, and it's a moving market. So it moves all over Nairobi according to the different days of the week. On Friday, I happen to know it's at Village Market, which is the shopping mall that we showed earlier. It's in the parking lot. On Tuesday, it's somewhere else in the city. On Wednesday, somewhere else, and so on and so forth. Alrighty, this is the same market, just at a different location. I just have a funny story that goes along with this market. One time, when my mom and I were shopping at this market, I got very tired and hot, and I decided just to go sit down next to one of the people so that I could just relax and cool down for a little while. I sat down next to this lady and started to talk to her about what she was making and what she was selling, and we were talking in a mixture of Swahili and English put together, and after a little while I found out she had a daughter that was my age, and then I asked where she went to school, and she went to school at the school right next to my high school, and she played sports, which probably meant that I had played sports against her. It just goes to show you never know who you will meet at a market. This is another picture that was taken out of the car window. You can see the billboards in the background and the overpass over the highway. Much of the city is just like any other big city in the world. What you can't really tell in this picture is that the cars are driving on the opposite side of the road than that of the United States. This last time when I went home for the summer, I came back to UNC after spending about 2.5 months in Kenya, and I walked up to my car, and I had to think. I stood there and thought for about 30 seconds because I couldn't remember which side of the car the steering wheel was on. Because in Kenya, you drive on the other side of the road, and therefore it's more logical to put the steering wheels in the other side of the car. So I just couldn't remember which side of my car, the steering wheels were in the United States, or the steering was in the United States. So now, we've been walking around the city for a while, but if we just kept walking, we would never see the whole city. It's a huge city. So let's figure out how to get around the city if we don't want to walk. Well, there are taxis and buses. They're both very common, but the most common mode of transportation in Nairobi is a matatu. A matatu is usually a minivan, like the one in this picture. They have yellow stripes down the side with the names of the parts of the towns or the names of the towns on their route. To get on a matatu, you go to a matatu stop, and when one pulls over, you just hop on and pay the man in the front. You can see two different matatus in this picture, and you just have to know where they're going in order to know which one to get on. Because there are thousands of matatus throughout the city and the country, you have to know how much money to give the person and where each one is going, and it gets very confusing, but once you get the hang of it, it's a great, inexpensive way to get around the city. Matatus are also usually very colorful with pictures and musicians and phrases of songs all over them. And actually, President Obama is on the back of many, many matatus because of Kenya's strong connection to him. And for those who are interested, his father was actually Kenyan. If you were just walking around Nairobi during the day, you probably wouldn't see this. But because you guys are in school, I thought maybe you would want to see what a school in Nairobi might look like. In all of Kenya, including Nairobi, the students wear uniforms, all of them. But this is a nicer school, you can see, because the children have desks, and not everywhere do children have desks. Also, there's a bulletin board in the back, which is also not common in the poorer and more rural schools. The last part of the city that is important to talk about is the slums. There are a number of slums in Nairobi, but the largest one is pictured here. This slum is called Kibera. Kibera is the second largest slum in all of Africa, with close to 1.5 million people living in it. In the slum, there's no running water. Multiple families will live in one of these tiny little houses right next to each other. This is a very sad situation, but it's part of the city of Nairobi. But to close our tour of Nairobi, I want to end on a happier note. So the next slide is a song that is a very common tourist song about welcoming someone to Kenya. So hopefully you'll hear it and want to go see Kenya for yourself.